tell me a little bit about one artist or a few artists who may have influenced your art practice, who might have a disability.
Yeah, certainly. I'll give you a little bit of information as to why I am intrigued by that artist. It's a deaf Aboriginal person, and so I feel quite engrossed with learning about that person, about the dream time, and about dance and ceremonies and storytelling and yarning. I have never had access to that growing up because I haven't been able to hear. When I did go to this workshop, there was this beautiful show on how to weave. I really wanted to be involved in that, but you have to sing. And you know, that's a certain colour and Indigenous language that you use that you need to sing whilst weaving. And so I was stumped. I couldn't participate. And I felt like that was quite a significant barrier for me until one day I was quite amazed to find in the newspaper a person named Dion Beasley. And that person himself is a deaf person. He's an Aboriginal person. I was absolutely excited. He has a muscular dystrophy. And so that's his disability. But that didn't stop him. He was still inspired to art. His artwork is called The Cheeky Dog. And that has actually since become quite famous. And all of his artwork and drawings have become quite well known. And that's what's really inspired me, which has actually made me think, you know what, I can do it. And so that's how that came to be. And another person who has inspired me is another deaf person from Sydney, Daniel McDonald. And Daniel, you know what? He's an Indigenous man, and he just felt like he needed to, well, he was always in a bit of a battle. He hid himself for quite a long time. He just, didn't want any judgment. He thought, the deaf community might think, oh, he doesn't know how. But he ended up having some good supports and some good networks. And then that's how he felt, you know what, it's time to show. And so what he does is use dot art and the dream time, and that's how he tells stories. He did an exhibition in a gallery, and he had 30 to 40 different artworks, and these were massive. And so he had those on exhibition, and he did a presentation in Auslan. And yeah, being a deaf Aboriginal man, that was really fantastic to see.
Tell me a little bit about your own art practice and how you got involved in the arts.
For me, when I had met those Indigenous artists, especially Daniel, he actually gave me the confidence to, I thought, if he can, then that means I can too. And so through that time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So I enrolled in a course through TAFE, and that course was Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural art. And from that, I did think, maybe I might not be welcome. But they welcomed me in. They were so happy to share, and I learned so much through that course. I really, really enjoyed it. I made a lot of different styles of art. So, for example, there was bark painting. I enjoyed that. Then another form of art was the clapping sticks and how they are made from scratch, and that was just absolutely stunning. I really enjoyed it. My skills really improved from there.
If you'd like to start by answering that question about who your favorite artist is with disability.
I wanted to focus on artists with disability that were in Australia. One was a man named Vincent Fantuzzo. He's a Archibald Prize winner. He does hyper-realistic painting. And it's interesting because I didn't really like that style until I sort of discovered his work. So from an artistic standpoint, I really enjoyed his work in particular. Some people, when they do photorealistic paintings, they can be a bit cold. They lack the warmth of a human face that other portraits or photographs can have. But I found that his paintings sort of had that warmth and character. Once I found out more about his life and his struggles with school and memory, I really related to that. And I also really liked the fact that he had these struggles, but he found a support system, and then he was able to succeed quite commercially. And I really like that narrative that, yeah, you can succeed even if things aren't perfect. The other artist I really liked was actually a filmmaker, Emily Dash. It was funny because I went to the Sydney Film Festival just randomly, and I got the tickets to the screenability section, and her film, well, the film that she wrote, The Milky Pop Kid, it was really funny and it was really entertaining, but it also had things to say. And I've sort of been following her films for a little while now, and this is before I sort of started running in the same circles as her. And I also like the fact that the creative team behind it were both women. The director was a woman as well, Joanna Garvin. She also identifies as disabled. So it's just this really great powerhouse team behind this really cool film.
With some of those artists that you mentioned, how did you initially discover their work?
Vincent, I went to an Archibald. I think he'd won People's Choice, but I just remember connecting to it. And so he was sort of in the back of my mind. And then there was a documentary about him last year, and it sort of talked more about his life and his arts practice, the things he had to overcome. I was following his paintings and just sort of being aware of them, but once I learned more about him, I sort of connected with him a bit more. I guess with Emily, I just liked her films, and then I had this rather funny connection of being friends with all of the same people that she is, just randomly.
If you would like to start by just answering who might be some artists that have influenced you in the area of disability.
The biggest influence in writing for me was Judy Johnson and my friend Danny Gentili, who has a book out. He's only just gone back to being able to read anything aloud. His anxiety is so severe. And you can imagine for someone who has to perform their work, how extraordinarily difficult that is. Writers who I know have to push through that to meet their, responsibilities. It's really amazing to me. And this is a writer who's just got this book out. Her name is Gabrielle Everall. The book is Donna Juanita and the Love of Boys. It's about sexualized trauma, the agony of recovery. It's a fantastic poetic prose. I would say this is a really wonderful book to read. This is a great book by Andy Jackson. It's called Music Our Bodies Can't Hold. Andy has Marfan syndrome, and Andy did this particular book with a whole group of people. It's a really sensitive portrait. It's generous, it's compelling. Andy's own work is just wonderful. He does workshops as well, and his partner also lives with a similar disability to mine. I find his work very visceral. It's very strong because of it, though. I'm not a person who likes a misery memoir. In visual arts, I'll show you who I've been collecting. That is all little needles, you see? It's beautiful, isn't it? That's a photo by Claire Weeks, and she has MS. I was very struck by how she'd used the syringes, the little syringes for injecting your medication, as this little town, this little city, and yet made them just so beautiful and sort of misty and wistful. She's an artist. I really like her work. She doesn't always do her work around disability, but that was one that really spoke to me because I have a lot of medication. And behind me, this is by Nada Decat, who lives up in Nambucca Heads. She's a magical realist painter.